Chapter 6. The Guardian's Shadow. The forest was alive with whispers. Leaves rustled in the absence of wind, and shadows danced across the underbrush, moving as if they had wills of their own. Seth stood at the edge of a ridge, cloaked in darkness, his sharp eyes tracking the movements below. Ava and Xander moved cautiously through the forest, their voices low as they discussed the dangers ahead. Seth's heart tightened as he watched them. Ava's silver aura, faint but unmistakable, pulsed in the gloom, a beacon she couldn't yet conceal. It made her a target, for the darkness, for rival alphas, for the Wolf Council, and for him. He tightened his grip on the dagger at his side, its hilt worn smooth by generations of guardians who had carried the same oath. Protect the Silver Wolf, preserve the balance, sacrifice if necessary. The last part gnawed at him, a bitter truth he had known since childhood. His life, his family's legacy, was forfeit the moment Ava's powers awakened. Yet standing here watching her laugh nervously at one of Xander's rare attempts at humor, Seth hesitated. He had studied the prophecies, lived by the rules etched into his bloodline, but seeing her now, she wasn't just the Silver Wolf. She was a young woman thrust into a role she didn't ask for, a role that would demand more than anyone should have to give. The thought made him clench his jaw. He couldn't allow himself to think of her as anything more than his charge. "They're heading straight for trouble," he murmured to himself, his voice barely audible over the forest's unnatural hum. He had scouted ahead earlier and knew what lay in their path. A pack of corrupted wolves, their minds twisted by the darkness. They wouldn't be as lucky this time. Seth turned, his decision made. He needed to step out of the shadows. Ava felt the hair on the back of her neck stand on end. She glanced over her shoulder, her instincts prickling. "Do you feel that?" she whispered to Xander. Xander nodded, his posture tense as his golden eyes scanned the trees. "We're being watched." Before either of them could react further, a figure emerged from the shadows, his movements fluid and deliberate. Ava instinctively stepped back, clutching the tome against her chest, but Xander positioned himself between her and the newcomer, his shoulders squared and his hands curling into fists. "Who are you?" Xander growled, his voice low and threatening. The man stepped into the faint moonlight, his dark hair catching the glow. His eyes were a striking shade of green, sharp and calculating. He held up his hands, palms out, in a gesture of peace. "My name is Seth," he said, his voice calm but edged with authority. "I mean you no harm." Xander didn't relax. "Then why were you following us?" Seth's gaze flicked to Ava, and for a moment something unspoken passed between them. "Because she needs protecting." Ava's grip on the tome tightened. "Protecting from what?" "From everything," Seth replied, his tone heavy. "The darkness, the council, the others who will come for you. You've barely scratched the surface of what you are, and already the world is moving to claim you." Xander took a step forward, his voice a growl. "And what makes you think we need your help?" Seth met his gaze without flinching. "Because I've been preparing for this moment my entire life. My family has guarded the Silver Wolf for generations. It's my duty to protect her." Ava's breath caught, her mind racing. "Guarded me? Why? What do you know about me?" Seth's expression softened just slightly. "Enough to know that the darkness won't stop until it consumes you. Enough to know that you'll need allies who understand what you're facing." Xander's growl deepened. "You expect us to just trust you?" "No," Seth said evenly, "but whether you trust me or not doesn't change the fact that you're walking into an ambush." Xander stilled. "What ambush?" "Corrupted wolves," Seth said. "A pack of them less than a mile ahead. They've been twisted by the darkness. They're faster, stronger, and they won't hesitate to tear you apart." Ava's stomach turned. She looked at Xander, whose jaw was tight with frustration. "If he's telling the truth," Ava said cautiously, "we can't face them alone." Xander hesitated, his distrust of Seth evident in his posture, but after a moment he gave a curt nod. "Fine, but if you try anything, I'll make sure you regret it." Seth didn't flinch. Understood. The forest grew darker as they moved closer to the corrupted wolves' territory. The trees loomed overhead, their branches twisted into unnatural shapes. A faint hum filled the air, a vibration that Ava felt in her bones. Every step forward heightened the tension, her senses sharpening in ways she didn't fully understand yet. Seth led the way, his movements precise and silent. Xander stayed close to Ava, his presence steadying her nerves. When they reached the edge of a clearing, Seth held up a hand, signaling them to stop. He crouched low, peering through the underbrush. Ava followed his gaze and froze. The clearing was filled with wolves, their fur matted and blackened, their eyes glowing an eerie yellow. They moved erratically, their bodies jerking as though fighting against invisible strings. The sight sent a chill down her spine. "There are too many," Xander muttered. "We can't take them all." Seth nodded. "We don't need to. We just need to draw them away long enough to get through." "And how do you propose we do that?" Xander asked. Seth's lips curved into a faint, humorless smile. "Leave that to me." Before either of them could protest, Seth slipped out of the shadows, his movements so swift and quiet that Ava barely registered his absence. A moment later, a sharp whistle cut through the air, drawing the corrupted wolf's attention. Seth darted into the clearing, his dagger glinting in the moonlight as he slashed at the nearest wolf. The pack erupted into chaos, howls and growls filling the air as they lunged after him. Seth moved like a shadow, leading them away from the clearing with a calculated precision that left Ava in awe. "Come on," Xander said, tugging her arm. "We have to move." Ava hesitated, her gaze lingering on Seth as he disappeared into the forest, the corrupted wolves hot on his heels. Then she turned and followed Xander, the tome pressed tightly against her chest. They ran until the sounds of the wolves faded into the distance. When they finally stopped, Ava doubled over, gasping for air. Xander's gaze scanned the forest, his body still tense and ready for a fight. "Do you think he made it?" Ava asked, her voice trembling. Xander's jaw tightened. "I don't know, but we can't wait to find out." A rustle behind them made them both whirl around, but it was Seth who emerged from the shadows, blood staining his clothes but otherwise unharmed. His expression was calm, but his eyes held a glint of exhaustion. "They're scattered," he said simply. "We're clear for now." Ava's relief was palpable. "Thank you," she said quietly. Seth nodded, his gaze lingering on her for a moment before turning back to the path ahead. "We should keep moving. The darkness won't give us much time." And with that, they pressed on, their uneasy alliance forged in the shadow of the coming storm.